Welcome. In the last program, I indicated that it is far too easy to get a search warrant. Well, how did that happen?
The Baker Brief with law professor John Baker. Your weekly dispatch from the battlefield of ideas.
As I indicated in the last program, all of the expansion of federal criminal law really begins with the progressives, and really first with the Supreme Court, which urges, or at least Congress thinks it urges it, to expand policing at the federal level. The key case really is what's called the lottery case, in which one state, namely Louisiana, was gathering so much money from all the other states because they had all outlawed gambling, but not Louisiana at the time. In any event, Congress didn't try to outlaw gambling in Louisiana, but it wanted to regulate its ability to send gambling materials, namely lottery tickets, from its state to other states, because other states couldn't, under our federalism, block their borders. They needed the protection against Louisiana from the federal government. Perfectly legitimate. But the Supreme Court laid out something in addition. They indicated that this was really a good moral cause. As a result of that, members of Congress decided that the court would uphold all kinds of things that it might do. And this is where we began to get the hook of the Commerce Clause. The Commerce Clause gets abused in terms of not really being about commerce, but being about policing. During the time when Franklin Roosevelt was president and he had changed the composition of the court itself changed its direction. That is, it ceased really to stop Congress from doing whatever it wanted to, because that was the view of the progressives from the beginning of Woodrow Wilson's writings. So with that attitude, they turned more so towards regulating the states, because the states couldn't resist them in the way that the other branches of the federal government could do. And some of what they did was certainly good in one sense. You can question the methodology, but there were abuses going on in the states. And there was the ability of the court, at least in certain areas, to intervene in the states to protect minorities in terms of the new provisions after the Civil War. All of that's to the good, but it expands. What happens in the 60s is something different. Yes, it is fed by the uproar over civil rights in the 60s. And there are provisions by which the Supreme Court and Congress can enforce civil rights laws, but it went beyond that. And two decisions in particular ignited a backlash. Those decisions were Mapp versus Ohio on the Fourth Amendment and the exclusionary rule, and also Miranda versus Arizona on the so-called and very famous Miranda warnings. These cases, in particular Miranda, were the stuff of TV crime shows and movies, seen not just in the United States, but people know the Miranda warnings all over the world, I've found. In any event, it was also the stuff of a conservative Republican backlash against these cases. Crime had never been a national issue until these cases, and Barry Goldwater in the election of 1964 raised the issue. He lost, but Lyndon Johnson carried on with it, and Nixon after him really made it a cornerstone of his campaign for law and order. And all of this, Congress was going along. Why? Because even though we didn't need any more federal criminal laws, Congress wanted to be appearing to doing something. They didn't want to go home and face election and be told that you're soft on crime because you didn't vote for this particular thing. They needed to be telling them, look, I'm protecting you against the federal government. But from 1970 onward, the pace of the increase of federal criminal law that has gotten us to the point of over 5,000 crimes is driven by politics. And people simply need to understand that 5,000 crimes are totally unnecessary. Indeed, prosecutors, federal prosecutors, only use a relatively few of them. But that doesn't mean that law enforcement agencies issuing search warrants don't use crimes that prosecutors would never think to actually prosecute. Indeed, you can make a lot more searches and arrests than the federal government can ever prosecute. The real danger we're getting into is the danger that people flee from other countries. And that is, as they told me, the knock on the door in the night.
To ensure your continued access to the Baker Brief, please note our additional channels listed below. And remember to like and subscribe using the bell icon.